All right, so Melissa, would you call to order the Timnath Development Authority meeting?
Yes. Excuse me. Chairperson Mark Suka,
Here.
Commissioner Rick Collins,
Here.
Commissioner Aaron Pearson, Commissioner Lisa Lake,
Here.
Commissioner Brett Hansen.
Here.
Did you say Aaron and note that he wasn't? Okay. All right, Don, I think it's a quick report, but go ahead, you're on. Or do you want to say anything? All it is the check.
I don't need to say anything unless
Okay.
somebody has a question. This is the annual Box Elder O&M payment for the Box Elder Stormwater Authority.
Okay. Does anybody have a question on that? Okay. I know we approved this on the council meeting. Do we approve it here too?
The consent calendar.
Yeah, it's in the consent agenda. Robert? I guess I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, I give you a
Do I need a motion
Yeah, I'm
for
going to
this?
offer you a motion to approve the consent agenda that has the payment.
But wait, it's not in the, that's in the regular meeting. I don't think this is a consent agenda. Is
Yeah, it is. It is.
that what it says?
Yep.
All right.
It's on the back of that page.
Oh, they hit it on me.
They hit it on you. So I'll give you a motion to approve the consent agenda
Thanks.
for
Could I have a
the
second?
Box Elder.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passes. Could I have, if there's no other items, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Melissa, could you call to order the town council meeting?
Yes. Mayor Mark Suka,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins.
Here.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson, Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Here.
Councilmember Brett Hansen.
Here.
Do we have any amendments to the agenda? Okay. Do we have any public comments, Melissa? Okay. The next we have the consent agenda for payables. Do I have a motion to approve that consent agenda payables?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Consent agenda other, approving the town council meeting minutes of February 23rd. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Before we do that, I'll just note that I did make one minor correction on those minutes that I submitted to the town clerk. That'll be on the minutes that are signed tonight. Just a minor correction.
Tell me real quick what it was, Brett.
In our discussions on the 8th filing, it was this report in the minutes that I'd asked about limiting future apartments in the 8th filing. My question had been about limiting future on-street parking. Just that minor bullet point there.
Okay.
And with that, I'll move to approve the consent agenda other.
Great.
Second as amended.
And Melissa, you've got that changed on the, okay, great. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Reports. Any council, first off, before we go any further, Aaron, I'm sure you're listening in. Sorry that you've got COVID. Hope you heal quickly and are much better off. We feel our thoughts are with you, as is our prayers. So hope you're feeling better. Next is council reports. Lisa.
I just have one short one.
Yes.
So the last week when I was at the North Front Range MPO meeting, there was an item that was discussed that I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention, is that at the state level, they're looking at regulations that would require all large businesses, doesn't apply to us specifically, but would be for any business over 250 people, that they're looking at requiring them to reduce single occupancy vehicle rates within their business, they'd have to hire someone or you have a staff member work on that. And so the communities were trying to get a list of who those employers might be so that we can reach out to them. I'm guessing Costco and Walmart here probably are over that limit, but it's going to be, I believe it's May that it's coming up at the state level. So it's not something that's been passed right now or implemented at this point, but I just wanted to give a heads up, and I'll keep you updated as far as when that moves along.
Thanks much, Lisa. Yes, Brett?
I'll just make a quick request to staff. We recently had that survey about the reservoir usage. If we could release that on the website? I know we got a few comments regarding future trail development around the reservoir, and I think it'd be important for people to see the data that we're looking at that's leading us to take development in the direction that it is.
Yeah, we're happy to put that together in a website post that we can refer people back to. I also wanted to note that as we've been looking at that, we're not going to be making it to Wild Wing with this phase of improvements. We'll be just on the south and the west side of the reservoir.
Okay.
We'll do specific outreach to Wild Wing before we approach that, tying that subdivision into the larger trail system. That will happen probably next year with construction happening in 23.
Okay, thank you.
One report, sort of. Good report. Get myself organized here.
And Mayor, Council, if you don't mind, I did just want to say a couple of words. First, to the council, it has been the privilege and the highlight of my professional career to work for the town for the last just about 10 years now. I am so appreciative and grateful of the opportunities that this council and the councils before have given me and our firm and some of the other attorneys at our firm to serve you. And I just wanted to tell all of you that. And to the staff within the town, I wanted to tell all of you that it has been such a wonderful experience to grow with you and to see what all of you do every day for the town. And I won't belabor the meeting tonight, naming every single person individually, but you have all meant the world to me over the years, starting with Melissa, who was here, I think, before any of us. But we've had so many talented, wonderful people that have worked hard to make this town successful, and seeing what this council has done, selecting some of the staff that's going to carry the torch forward and take the town into the future is just a very confidence-inspiring experience. So to Aaron, I just wanted to tell you that you have my best wishes, and I'm very excited to see what all of you accomplish going forward. Thank you.
It's been, Robert's been here for 10 years for everybody's edification, and you've done just a great job. I mean, when you started, what was it, about 300 people here? And it's grown quite a bit since then. So thank you very much.
Yeah, Mayor,
Yes.
Yeah, I'd just like to say a couple words. I know 10 years goes by in real fast, but during those 10 years, there was a lot of things I know that played on your mind and it was troubling. And yeah, I'm reminded of a legislator gave me a sign for my office once that said, if you're coming here to chew on my ass, you're chewing on scar tissue. And I know it's sometimes you and I got back and forth at each other pretty good, but I always saw you as a professional and want to thank you and wish you the best.
Anybody else? Okay, thanks a lot, Robert. Next item on reports is Brian, you wanted to talk about the police building or summarize up the work session, I guess.
Yeah, I just drafted a quick memo to summarize the points that we discussed and kind of the outcomes there, so they're memorialized. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have on the staff report there.
Thanks, good report. That takes us to resolution number 14, series 2021, a resolution approving an independent contractor agreement for municipal finance advisor services. Lisa, do you want to
Sure,
get us up to speed there?
sure. As you guys saw in the previous packet, we put out an RFP for a financial advisor to look at our existing debt, and they would analyze and give us recommendations as to potentially refunding that debt. We got 3 proposals back. The mayor, myself, and 3 other finance committee members interviewed all 3 teams, and we agreed that Ehlers was the firm that we'd like to select to perform that service. The initial cost is $3,750, which we do have a budgeted line item for finance contracted services. And they're ready to start that work and then come back to council with presentations. And I'll answer any questions.
I'm going to make a couple comments. Lisa, you did just an awesome job pulling that together. This is something I know a number of the people in town work. The finance committee appointed 5 individuals to interview these people. Lisa sent out an RFP. The 3 candidates that we had were just off the chart, smart, intelligent, had a real care for their business, and I think they'll do a great job. I hope, you know, they're concerned. We've got some onerous call provisions in our loans, but they're going to try their best to see what they can come up with, and also if we have any future leasing, financing needs and stuff like that, they give Lisa somebody to bounce off. She's sort of a lone wolf there in that business, and so having some professional support in her area of expertise, I think is going to be something that she looks forward to too, if I got it right, Lisa.
Yes, and I think one of the things that we really liked was that they had put in their proposal, a lot of the work that they do, we can set a do not exceed amount. So if we wanted to provide them to provide some analysis, we could set up that arrangement at that time. So it's not just by the hour.
But Lisa, thanks a lot. I know the committee was real impressed with how you handled it and how the whole system came together, and I was real impressed. I appreciate. Could we maybe send a thank you card to the 3 people other than you and me
Sure.
that were on that committee to thank them for their efforts on that. They spent a lot of time going and interviewing and reviewing RFPs and that. So,
Sure.
okay, great. So could I have a motion to approve the independent contractor agreement?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Big eye.
Opposed?
Big eye.
Big eye, yeah, I'm real pleased with this one. Ordinance number 3, amending chapter 16, article 6 of the Timnath Land Use Code.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Tonight we have a amendment, yet another amendment to the Land Use Code. We make these periodically, and we take them through a process planning commission and a town council, and it's an ordinance. So it's actually putting into law these changes into the land use code. It is a public hearing as well tonight. So we've advertised for this. The last meeting was where we set this public hearing. So that was procedurally how that got done. Staff has been working diligently on bringing these amendments forward. Have had many conversations with some of the council members as well to make sure that we're dotting i's and crossing t's and covering our bases. I'll go through some of the highlights here and then kind of dive into questions. And I know there's a couple of things that are coming from the council tonight that want to make a couple tweaks here and there. So, but I'll start in as we're updating a table 2.1, which is the hearing notice requirements. We've actually added the neighborhood meeting column to that and show where neighborhood meetings are required. And then, so that table is just literally getting updated to include that and a couple other minor changes. We actually have a notice, some noticing provision changes that we've brought forward. Some days for the sign posting. We actually added a little bit more time so that staff had a chance to vet any applications and get a sign posted. Gives us a chance to do that. And to Councilman Collins's point from our last meeting, we actually are going to be purchasing some signs that have a little rider on the top that actually we can insert a little note that says public hearing. So we can start to bring people's attention to the signage that way. So it's not just a static thing that sits out there for months and months. There'll be a moment in time where that gets updated. So that's a behind the scenes staff thing. We didn't write it into the code, but I want to let you know that we were taking that to heart and trying to bring something forward there. We are also kind of making some changes in the clarification section of this noticing. Some people are getting confused about what a public hearing is versus what a referral is. And so we just pulled those apart and said a referral, and those are the referral agencies. And we wanted to show that that's a separate noticing from the public hearing noticing. So that's what that is about. Another table that we updated is actually related to the agricultural zoning. We tried to bring the zoning for agricultural lots in alignment with what you could have from a livestock perspective. So 2.5 acres is a pretty good sized lot. It's a little over 10,000 square feet. It is, or 100,000, my apologies, 100,000 square feet. They could be run on septic, but they also would be a little more forgiving in the sense that you could have a clustered, almost agricultural development centered around some livestock or a horse property or something like that. So tried to bring that agricultural zoning into alignment with some of those things. The car wash, stacking spaces, we needed to clarify that. There's a little bit of confusion around how many stacking spaces, and so we cleaned that up by this language as well. I'm not reading through these, but I just wanted to bring them to your attention. Under
And you did do a great job on. It's real easy to see what's being changed and what was proposed and what was suggested. So you did a great job on that, Matt. But keep going to things you think you should highlight.
Yeah, the next one is actually one of the larger changes that we're making is related to care homes. So these are the day in-home daycares, and one of the challenges we were having was with the radius separation. So we saw that actually could hinder some people from, maybe they're within that radius, but they're not, they're actually in another neighborhood. They're across the railroad tracks, for example, but they would still be in the radius, and it would preclude them from being able to have a daycare. So we started to look at it a little differently. And the approach that we took here was we really lined it up with how we were doing our short-term rentals, where you have a number of in-home daycare permits, so to speak, based on the number of COs or whatever they're in that neighborhood. So we kind of dialed it in so that you couldn't have a neighborhood that was really overrun with daycares, which it could get a little more impactful to the residents that are there. We got to be respectful of the amount of traffic and noise and things like that that's generated by these. But we also want to give some more flexibility in that people could be a little closer together than the dimensional standard that we had before. So that was a more of a little bit bigger change that we were bringing forward. And with all of these changes, I'll pause for a second, as we at Planning Commission had a unanimous vote on all of these changes and had a lot of good conversation about them. So, but we answered their questions and brought forward feel like we're bringing forward a good amendment. We also went into parking, which I know has lately been a pretty heated, if you will, conversation where some places feel they're underparked and others maybe overparked, and we're trying to find that balance. And what we look to as staff, we look to the Institute of Traffic Engineers, and they develop a manual every year or every other year that goes out and analyzes every parking scenario. And so we took our parking list and compared it to the most recent version of that and finessed the things that we felt like needed to be. So the changes you see in this parking list are related to those recommendations that professional organization has done. So those are what you see in the proposed category there. Window wells is a minor one. We just wanted to clarify the setbacks for those. And chain link fences, again, another minor one where you have a sport court or something. We wanted to allow that for chain link, but vinyl coated kind of a chain link. So it was nicer than your standard chain link. And then we just had a minor clarification in the setback reduction incentive where the lots and blocks that back to open space can take advantage of that setback reduction incentive. This was something that was being applied this way, and it was a little unclear in the code. So we cleared that up with this language. And then the open space one is actually one that we've been working with Council Member Hanson quite a bit on this, and it was something that he brought forward a few months ago. And staff has done a lot of research on this and really appreciate the input that Brett has brought to the table. And we think we got a pretty good compromise here that kind of works towards increasing that open space requirement for multifamily projects. It also brings in this idea of usable open space. So and the usable open space then goes to things that are actually places that people can recreate in. It's not just leftover strips of land or unusable pieces of ground. That it really needs to be, there's a 25% requirement overall, and then there's is it 50%? Then there's 50% of that 25% is required to be usable. So and then we have a host of definitions associated with what usable is considered. And I believe Brett will probably have more to say about that, but you can see there's a lot of different things that fall into the usable category. And some of it has some staff discretion and some of it has council discretion as to whether it could qualify. So, but we certainly wanted to give people an opportunity to have some other places to reach out to have usable open space. That was something that we felt was pretty strong that we wanted to have incorporated in these multifamily developments. And I believe, and then we had actually a few development process definitions and these are really the procedural things that just weren't defined in the code. We all know what they are and we use them on a regular basis, but to have a definition you can point to. With that, we did have a couple of public comments. We had and we resolved pretty much both of these. We had two, one from one of the developers, Hartford Homes, and Kevin had worked with them and they had no further questions, but we wanted to include it for your reference.
What were they suggesting, Kevin? So I'm directed first to Dave Thorpe.
Yep.
I couldn't track what he's suggesting versus what's in the code, so I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but
So I'll just try and summarize.
just tell me real quick.
Yeah, a quick summary is if there's a development like Trailside where there's a mixture of multifamily of townhomes and single family, how would these new land open space standards be applied to that? And then also if there was similarly to that, if there was like in Trailside where there was a parcel that was remained undeveloped for, a senior housing or a higher intensity use, could that also qualify for the general subdivision open space? That was generally the concerns they had, to which working with him, I explained to him that, if it's zoned R3 per the standards, it would get the 25% would have to be met, which could be, applied across the entire subdivision. And then for a lot that was left undeveloped, that individual lot would still have to meet the 25% on that lot.
Great. What about John's question?
Yep, we actually, we have in our narrative under natural habitat, and I believe we might have actually made a small tweak here, but we mentioned, let's see, identification of natural habitat areas must provide an ecological study from a qualified independent third party verifying that it is a natural habitat. So I think we tagged his base. We didn't want to specifically call out this program that he's talking about because there's other people out there that do this.
And do the same thing.
Yeah.
Great.
So I think that was it for our comments. I know we have some questions
Okay.
and we'll run at those.
So Rick.
Yeah, I just had a question on daycare centers, the ones that are already permitted out there in some of the residences. Those are like grandfathered in,
Correct. Yes.
I'd assume. What happens with those if they decide to sell the house? Can somebody else then apply for a permit if they build out their basement or one of their floors?
Yeah, so the way that with this, how the state works, from my understanding, is that even if you move, let's just say, you move down the street, you would, your license is tied to your address. It's not necessarily tied to, you as a person. So you would have to reapply with the state to get it, which then you would have to reapply with the town. But so if there was an existing one, they moved out, the buyers, if they wanted to do the same thing, they would have to get, a permit.
And we're not prohibiting that.
No,
we're not.
no.
And most of those are just one permit because they're less than 15 people, I think.
Yeah, so currently our regulations allow for 8 kids and 9 individuals. So if it was you and, somebody else, you would have the ability to care up for 8 children. From the state regulations, typically 8 children is your max for one person. You can get a senior, I'm going to call it a senior care provider where you can care for up to 12 as an individual, but you have to go through an extensive process with the state to be able to do that. So we kind of kept it at the 8 per what the state allows for one person to do.
Yeah, we cut ours off at 8 because we felt that the impact of going beyond 8 to the neighborhood was too much in a in-home daycare.
Thank you.
Lisa.
So mine actually kind of ties onto that. And I know we discussed childcare a while back when we changed part of that regulation or whatever. Do we know how close we are to these number of permits that are available? Are we like close in some neighborhoods?
Well under.
Well under in
Well
all of them.
under,
So
yep.
every neighborhood at this point has the opportunity for more if they wanted to.
I believe the only one that would be in question is Summerfield Estates, as we have 2 within there. And I believe I've heard that one of them is actually moving, which would open that up. The other one is over in the Timnath Ranch side of things. Those are the only 3 that we've had permitted in town. So very open right now for the ability for these.
Okay, and is the childcare license different than if somebody does a preschool in their home, or would this apply to that as well?
It applies to that as well.
Okay,
We look at both of those virtually being the same.
okay, great, thank you.
Are you good, Lisa? Okay. Go ahead, Brett.
So I know I've been discussing with staff a little bit about the noticing requirements. We've been kind of going back and forth on whether, 500 feet was a good distance. I know staff looked at a number of communities in the area and they were saying 200 to 300 feet. Last night I took a little time and Googled a few dozen communities around the nation, and 200 to 300 feet was also pretty standard. So 500 feet is actually a pretty high bar. But one area we did land on that I think would be good is staff has been working on formulating a policy in terms of the timing of when addresses are pulled and the notices are sent out, because we saw in some of these last filings, some people just missed the cutoff. And I'll let Matt and Kevin speak to the actual days there, but I think a combination of codifying the timing of when notices are sent out, along with the additional policies that I think Matt and Kevin are going to speak to, I think will really help to help residents not be as surprised as much, and be able to point to reasonable things that people can look at to feel like that they should know what's going on in town. So I'll turn over to Matt and Kevin to kind of give some details on those numbers there.
So what Brett's referring to is that we have a policy now that we've started implementing post Timnath Ranch 8th filing, basically. It was something we've actually been working on now that we've brought more staff in, is that we, at the staff level, we're preparing that mailing list and not having the applicant do it. So we'll prepare those mailing lists, and then the staff will do the mailing. And what we've talked about is actually having it as a part of the land use code, where we say staff will generate the public hearing list within 20 days of a public hearing, and then staff will do the mailing within 10 days of the public hearing. So it's shortened the window. There's a less of a chance that we'll miss people that are moving in. I mean, there's probably still going to be a chance that there's be some people that are moving in, but within that 500 feet, we'll be tagging those, hopefully getting those people.
Hey, Matt, you also mentioned outreach, transparent outreach on email filings. Now, do you want to say what you told me?
Yeah, from a policy perspective, and we're going to work with our website and marketing team about putting a subscription on the website where you can subscribe to development proposals under review. And we'll do a Facebook push and all that. So you can subscribe to that email blast, and on a weekly basis, we'll be sending out a notice basically of what's coming, what public hearings are up and coming, and what neighborhood meetings are up and coming. So you'll see that chain of events. It may be the same from the week prior, but at least it'll be a reminder, so that if when the meeting is coming up, you see it on a Monday, even if the meeting is the very next day, you have a chance still to get engaged if that was the only time you saw it.
Great.
And I like this balance, because I think it makes a really effective use of staff's time in terms of getting the word out, rather than having them stuff an extra 100, 200 envelopes every time we do one of these applications. I think these are good, effective uses of time that will be visible to people. So
are you all good?
I'm good with we'll have the change in there with the timing of the notices and when that goes out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I did have the one area I do know is parking for medical and dental offices, because I've developed 80,000 square feet of office space for medical and dental. And so I have talked with Matt, and we talked, and what I had found when I researched it was 4 to 5 per 1,000 square feet. Our current was, as you can see, if you go to page 110, you can see what the medical is, and it was a little convoluted in there too. And so staff actually came back with what they felt was comfortable in raising it up, which is all the medical will be 4 per 1,000 square feet. And there probably was was that a typo then? Is that what you finally figured out?
Yep.
There's a typo on veterinary facilities. 3 per 100 square feet would be quite a bit of space. So we need to fix that and correct that. So we're correcting that my suggestion is we correct that from three spaces per 1,000. All medical be 4 per 1,000. And then if you look, there's health club and athletic facilities, which we really could, I think, Matt, you and I struggled with what's the difference and how do you do it? So just remove athletic club and then everything will be under health, and that makes more sense too. And I've talked to Matt about that to make sure, and I think you felt comfortable with those suggestions and stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
So, so I will, did the items that Brett wanted need to be a addendum? Okay.
Yeah, so with yours and with Brett's, so we have those two. I actually have one other that I'd like to just to throw out. Just
Okay, go ahead.
When we were doing our research the past few weeks about this noticing distance and the requirements and all that, we came across a kind of belt and suspenders language that we felt would be good to throw in there. And I'll have Robert actually back me up on this, but I'll read what I think is would be some good language to actually add in. As we feel it's procedural, but I would like to have it on the record.
Do you have it printed?
I do. What I'll do.
Hey,
Do you have
Susan,
another copy?
could you maybe make a copy of something here?
Just here, this one. Here, I'll take this.
Thank you.
I'll read it while you're
Thanks,
getting
Susan.
copies.
Yeah, go ahead. That way I do better if I can read. I'm sorry,
Perfect.
Matt.
Yep. And I was going to actually have copies. I wasn't sure I was actually going to bring it forward, and
Okay.
we had talked about it and thought it would be good to actually bring forward. So,
Okay.
basically it goes, the following shall have no effect on the validity of any hearing, meeting, or determination by the decision maker. The fact that written notice was not mailed as required under provision of this section. The fact that written notice mailed as required under the provision of this section was not actually received by one or more of the intended recipients. The fact that signage posted in compliance with provisions of this section was subsequently damaged, stolen, or removed either by natural causes or by persons other than the persons then responsible for posting such signage or his or her agents. It's,
Matt, let me jump in and just
yeah, go ahead.
take the council a step back to talk about what the purpose of this language is before getting into the details of the language. So this is a pretty standard savings position or savings provision, and not savings provision. Yeah, not all jurisdictions do these, but you do see them somewhat frequently.
Could you explain savings? I
Sure.
don't understand the
Sure.
terminology or the context.
Absolutely. I'm heading that way. So,
Okay, I'm sorry.
So there, as the council is now acutely aware, the notice provisions in the land use code are pretty detailed, and they require hundreds of mailings in some cases. And these provisions are put in place so that in the event either the staff is using reasonable due diligence and doing everything it can, but just one of the mailings doesn't make it to an address, or somebody does make a minor mistake and misses one of the addresses, or puts a typo into one of the addresses, or the mailing and posting goes out, and then through weather or some other reason it comes down. That notwithstanding the fact that there's a hiccup in the process, that the process still works and it still withstands a judicial challenge down the road. So the language that Matt's referring to comes from the Fort Collins code. And again, it's one of these types of provisions that some jurisdictions have them, some don't. I think even if you didn't have this provision, that you'd still be fine in court if somebody were to challenge the fact that one of these mailings didn't make it to the right address. But still, the provision is one that I think is prudent to include if the council's inclined to do it.
Matt, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Anytime we have a filing that's both under planning and then comes to the council, it's posted on our website, right? I mean, if somebody is curious at all about a property in Timnath, they could look on our website and see a discussion of that, can't they?
Absolutely. We, even to take it a step further, we have a development under review page. So if you see a sign up there and you're like, oh, there's a project here, you go to that development under review page and you can actually look at every single document associated that's been submitted to us related to that.
So we're doubling and tripling. If I'm
Yeah.
saying the wrong words, correct
No,
me.
Yep.
We're doubling and tripling up transparency and making people aware of what's going on certain properties and stuff through the use of the website and soon to be email subscriptions and our sign posting and mailing.
And we also put it in the newspaper too. So even though people don't really look at the newspaper, but that's the legal side of it, that's one of the legal places.
Do we use Colorado and is that?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Mayor, the way this is worded, it puts the total burden on citizens instead of the town, just so people know, because if you took the same language and struck the word shall and put may in instead, the following may not affect the validity. It still gives you wiggle room. So if somebody walks in and sits out in the audience and has a legitimate deal, we can look at that. But by putting shall, it's more or less black and white. I just bring that up so.
Let's just keep talking on it because I'm trying to get my head around this too.
Having the word shall.
No, I totally agree, and I agree with what you're saying.
Burden on the people that sit on that side to come up with, it takes the ball out of their hands entirely.
But
let's say
so
somebody
here's
goes
but
out
here's
there and they steal
here's
every
what I
sign.
think this is for. Now you correct me, Robert, because I think I don't want to be putting words in your mouth,
No.
but I think if planning and zoning has approved it and we've approved it and has had 2 hearings with us, that do we want to subject ourselves, the town, not us, do we want to subject the town to someone coming in and saying, I didn't get the mailing and therefore what you did is invalid? And I think the purpose of this is to prevent that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Because there's always, every time the notices go out, or maybe not every time, but it's not at all uncommon for the town a week or 2 later to receive a return to sender response from at least one of the hundreds that go out. It's just the reality of it.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the reason for this kind of language is that some people have abused, that sat on that side by coming in and they didn't want that trail or they didn't want something. So they said, we didn't get a notice, the sign wasn't properly posted. There's always something there. All I'd want to do is point out that this makes it pretty black and white.
Yeah.
And it also puts more of a burden on the town in that we've got to make sure we've dotted everything and crossed everything as well, because you're just closing a loophole that attorneys, I'm not saying which attorneys, tried to use over time to stop different things from going forward.
And maybe back to Robert's earlier point was, this is without this language, this basically still applies. This is basically us just showing people that here's what it really is happening. So we're pretty much doing it without doing it now.
It comes down to one word, the shall
or
versus may. Because may, you still can say everything was done right. Shall, it then tells the council, it says shall.
I think it works the opposite of what you're saying, Rick, isn't it, Robert?
Well, Mayor Pro Tem, in my view, if you use the word shall, then it takes the conversation off the table. If there's a legal challenge, then the town gets the legal challenge dismissed at the motion for summary judgment stage. If the word is may instead of shall, then there's this question that you may. Right.
And there's a discretionary.
Right, but this is all in the context of a Rule 106 challenge after, as the mayor had noted, there's been these 2 or 3 layers of notice that have been provided. You've gone through the planning commission hearing. The council has had its 1 or 2 hearings, depending on the item that's in front of them, and the council is satisfied that substantial compliance with all the notice requirements has been achieved. And so the purpose of this language is once you get to that point, in my view, you're better off protecting the town from having to spend taxpayer resources defending a lawsuit, and you get that lawsuit disposed of more quickly, I think, if the language says shall than may. But I hear your point. It does behoove the
No,
town
I'll
to
give you
ensure that.
another example and again, I'm not voting against this. I'm just saying that I want the council to be aware of this, because sometimes we feel like our hands are tied in the thing, like on a zoning request where somebody wants to come in and say, we don't want that business on this site. Well, we zoned it much earlier and went through a process through the planning and everybody else. Our hands are basically tied. We can't say, no, you can't put that business, because earlier we zoned it and said that an R, whatever it is, can go there. So I'm just bringing it out so people know you're in that position where then as an attorney, you'll say to us, they've raised the issue, and because it says shall, all these guidelines have been met, it pretty much closes the door. And that's just so people know that that's going on.
I don't see it necessarily that way. I see it more as like a protection to us. I don't
It's a protection to
see
the
that
town.
this is saying we're not going to try to do those things.
Oh, no, we've got to be sure.
You
to do
know,
it.
so I think
agree.
that's not what the language necessarily says. So I don't think by putting this in here, we're telling community members, oh, it's your job to go to our website and see what development is coming up. I don't think it should be taken that way by community members anyway, because I mean, we just listed out all the different things that we're planning to do. I know for me, for example, my mail is not always reliable. There are things that don't get to my house or things like that. And I think it's just kind of saying, we're going to do our best, but if for some reason we get a return to sender
You okay?
thing to that address, you know, we did our best.
So I'm going to do a quick check. I think we're going to have 3 addendums. We could vote on them separately or in together. Is there any of the things that we've discussed that somebody feels?
I would just make a motion with all 3 of them.
Okay, I just wanted to check. So
Great.
how do we
I make a
want?
motion with the
Wait.
language. Yeah,
Because
okay.
there's some procedural thing here. I got to make sure we got it right. So we want to put this in.
Yep.
We want to put in the change that you have here on the square footage, and there's a change
Brett.
with Brett.
The timing of the
And you
notification.
have the wording so that.
Yep.
Yep.
Do you want, we probably should read
Do
it.
you want me to read that out?
Yes.
Let me find my, yeah, that's what I was.
I'm sorry, could you?
See if there's
Public hearing. It is a public
Oh.
hearing, so we do need to open and close that.
Okay, so just a sec before you go, Melissa, do you want to call the public meeting to order?
We'll open the public hearing at 6:51. But there isn't anyone to speak, so we can close the public hearing at 6:51.
I don't see anybody wanting to speak, so go ahead, Melissa. Go ahead and close, or did you already close it? Okay, good deal. All right, now.
Do you want me to read
Matt.
out? I'll read out this, and what I'll do after I read it out, we'll actually put this together and give it to Melissa so that it'll get put into the.
That'd be great.
So it'll be.
But I think officially, we probably should read
Yep.
it into the record too.
So from council member Hanson's change was to section 2.9.4.2 A, public hearing notice. We're going to add the following. Mailing label, staff shall prepare mailing labels within 20 days of a public hearing and mail said mailing labels, said mailing within 10 days of a public hearing.
Okay. You good, Brett?
I'm good.
Okay, and then the parking spaces,
Yep, the parking adjustments per, so for the medical All medical categories, the proposed changes will be 4 per thousand. And with the veterinary facilities being 3 per thousand. And then under recreational, we're going to be removing the athletic club. And then the third change was the language that we had, I'm not going to reread the whole thing, but it was the
I don't,
language about the.
yeah, based on, I think we all got a copy of that, so.
Those were the 3 changes that I had.
Are we procedurally okay here, Robert?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor, can I just make one
Yes.
thing? So in the highlighted area, just in case that's the exact wording that's going to be
It's
used.
got some typos. in
Okay,
there.
I was just
I
going to
was,
say that.
I was
so-
reading it, and when I was reading it out, I was like,
Okay.
wait, there are some real fundamental problems. So
Okay.
with the typos in here, it was, this is Fort Collins, we copied it from them. And so
It's like the
so
following,
we'll blame them.
the following shall no effect. I was like, shall
That's what you get for
not or
plagiarizing,
shall-
Matt.
What's that?
That's what you get
That's
for
what you get for
plagiarizing.
plagiarizing, I tell you. It's just it's really. So we will correct
Okay.
those. As I was reading it, it didn't really, so I fixed it when I read it, but anyways, we'll make those changes.
All right. So could I have a motion to approve the land use?
Motion to approve the ordinance with the 2 council amendments and the 1 staff amendment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Brian, did you decide to talk about, you're okay? Okay, on the trail? Okay. Do I have any other items to bring before the council? Any council comments? Lisa, would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We got done in under an hour and we had